Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, April 6th. This is class 17 of, no, it's class 16. I didn't update that title yet, sorry. This is class 16 of CADD 212. Today in class, we're going to go over the following information. I think the stuff that we're going to go over today is actually fun, which is why I call it Fun with Revit. We're going to learn how to create an interiors plan for our first floor. Why we do the interiors plan is I just want you to know how to import furniture and get that placed and have that arranged in just the first floor. And I want you to do it on the second and third floor because we're not actually doing those, not actually doing an interior design class. But it's also interesting when you have the furniture laid out when we do a walkthrough, and we'll learn how to do that today as well. We're also going to learn how to do renderings. There's a few different ways that we learn how to do renderings, and we'll play with that. And you can see once we start getting to this point where we're doing the different renderings and the walkthroughs, that your drawings are really going to start coming to life. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into Revit. Let me pick one to start with. Start with this one. All right, let's take a look at this one. So it's got a flat roof on this one, much like we talked about in the last class about adding dormers. Dormers would actually not work on this building, but this person can create a separate file with a small building on it so they can add the dormers to it. So let's take a spin around and see what we can find before we move on to today's lecture. All right, so windows are lined up really nicely. Nice and balanced. We've got our ceiling plan here. Remember, when you do ceilings, they should be per room instead of this large ceiling that's running across this way. So let's actually delete this ceiling. All right, we've got some painting going on behind this. And then another large ceiling here. So make sure that you go back, you do the ceilings per room. And what we talked about the other day in class about splitting the walls horizontally, this will also help with this issue right here, how all of them pink. All these walls are pink, so I would go ahead and go back and fix that as well. Let's go back to our ceiling level 3. Here's our ceilings on 3. Remember, when you're doing ceilings, you're going to go to Architecture tab, Build Panel Ceiling Tool. And this perhaps might be why you weren't able to do the entire room by room. What is going on here? This is strange. You got your ceilings here. Let's try level 3 floor plan. Yeah, it's giving you some issues where it probably wouldn't allow you to do that. Let's see, height offset. Let's change this height offset to 8 feet for now. All right, it was just too high just because it's the top floor. Go back to level 3. Ceiling plan, you can see that they're coming in. So what needed to be changed was the height on that. And that's probably because with your flat roof on it, the ceiling would have actually been taller than 10 feet. So let's actually go back to 3D and take a look at it and see what's going on there. So here we see our ceilings are being placed correctly. We change that, since that was defaulted to 10 feet. I change that to 10 feet. Yeah, it's going to be just over that wall. So this would be a case where you would want to change that to like maybe 9 foot 10 inches. And that should work. But the reason it wasn't coming in is because since your acoustic ceiling tile system is so thick, it was actually above here, which is why it wouldn't work. So little things like this, they honestly, I understand they do get annoying and they do get frustrating, but this is the way that we learn how to perfect our craft. So just little things like that, pay attention to. If you're having an issue with something, go over here and check in the properties and adjust it, and that might help as well. So once again, just a learning curve, but the rest of this is looking really good on here. So all right, so let's put everything back together and take a spin with it today and play with it. All right. So first thing we're going to do is our interiors plan. So interiors, we're going to use that on level 1. So the steps in order to create your interiors plan is we're actually going to duplicate level 1. So we'll have 2 copies of it, because as you noticed in the first half of the semester, if you bring in a floor plan into your sheets once, you can't bring it in again. So we need to actually create a duplicate. So we're going to make a duplicate of level 1, rename it to level 1 interiors. And then in level 1 interiors, we'll turn off furniture using visibility graphics. And then we'll use our components tool to create our floor plans with our different furniture types. So let's go ahead and walk through that. So we're going to go to level 1 floor plans. I want to duplicate this view. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to duplicate view, and I'm just going to duplicate a regular view. Sometimes if you do with detailing, dependents, other things will, if you have a lot more stuff in here like measurements, that will duplicate as well. So I just like to use the regular duplicate. And you'll notice that we'll create a new floor plan in my project browser. So here I'm going to rename this. Just right click and rename. And I'm going to call this level 1 interiors. Now I have basically 2 copies of the same thing. And what I'm going to do to tell the difference is I actually want level 1 interiors to have the furniture in it. So just to show you how that works, I'm going to go to components, load family, and let's go to our furniture. And let's load in one of these chairs in this office right here. Notice how it's facing one direction. I can press my space bar and it'll rotate it for me. Then I can drop that into place. And if I go back to my regular level 1, that furniture is still in level 1. So it's going to duplicate. So in order to make sure that we don't see this information in level 1, regular level 1, we want to go to our visibility graphics at this time. And remember that shortcut is VV or VG. At this point, I want to turn off my furniture in this view. So I'll select furniture and hit apply, and that will turn off that there. And anything I import from furniture will not show up in level 1. So I'm going to do the same for furniture systems. And maybe a couple other ones that we want to turn off. I'm not going to want any plantings. If I do put any like plants or anything in there. No specialty equipment. And you'll learn the typical ones not to turn off as you go through this. All right, so let's go ahead and hit OK. So now in regular level 1, we don't have any furniture. So back to level 1 interiors, and we can continue to start placing furniture in here as well. So let's go back to architecture tab, build panel components tool. We're going to go to load family. We're going to pick some other fun stuff to start loading in here. Let's go to specialty equipment as I had. That was one of the topics that I turned off. Classroom stuff. If you want to lay out classroom stuff, you can use some of this. Under domestic, if you want, let's see, we have kitchenettes. So you have all your, I don't think we're going to have this in any kind of break room. So, but it's just kind of fun to go through and look and see what's available. Let's go back to furniture system, see what's in there. Standing desks. Let's throw in a couple of these. When you do that, it's similar to how you select the doors sometimes. So you can pick different sizes. Let's just try this one. Let's drop in a couple of these over here. Get a 3D. So here you can see that we're dropping all of our furniture into place. And then if we go back to regular level 1, no furniture is visible here. So it's nice. You'll use this level 1 for your level 1 floor plan. And as we start to create sheets, when we move into construction documents, you'll use level 1 interiors for your interior plan. 1 second, please. All right, resume recording. All right, picking up where we left off. We're going to jump into our next topic. Any question about creating an interiors floor plan before we move on? And I really do like to see a few things put in this first floor plan and all the rooms and stuff, because that goes on to the more interesting part of what we're going to talk about today, which is how to do renderings and how to do walkthroughs. So renderings, I know, is really where y'all are wanting to kind of play with this, and it really does become really interesting at this point. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So I'm going to go to 3D for that. And basically a rendering is just like taking a picture. So I'm going to line up the view that I want right here. And then I'm going to go to my view tab, to my presentation panel, and my render tool. When I do that, you'll see that I have a new window that becomes open. There's a few different things that I want to adjust on here. But let's go ahead and just do a quick render. So we'll just go ahead and hit the render button, and let's see what happens. So we have something that looks like that, starting to look a little bit better. The reason that it looks a little rough in this view is because our settings are set to draft settings. So what I usually do is when I'm doing this, the first time I'll have it set on draft level because as you notice, it does take so long to actually create a rendering. So I'm going to change this to medium and we'll see how it improves as we go through. I'll hit render again. And it's starting to get more and more refined as we go. If we zoom in, we can see a little closer that these are soldier laid bricks. And, you know, we can get better and better the more that we set our quality settings. Now, I'm not going to do high now just because it takes so long to actually render it. But when you're submitting yours, I would go ahead and suggest to use high. If you have time to just sit around and let it render, you can use best, but usually I recommend not to go past high. Excuse me. All right, so that's just one quick rendering. Once we do that, we can go ahead and save to project. And then we can name that whatever we want it to be. So it's South View. And then we can go back and show model. And it'll go back to this point right here. I can change my view around. So if I wanted to do just a view like that. And now let's render this view. And here we have another view right here. And let's save this to project also. Now, if it closed that render goes away, but it automatically does save in your project browser. So you'll always have these views down here. But think of these like pictures. So if it's just like a snapshot of where this building is at this particular moment, it's a static image. It's not going to change like a lot of other stuff changes in Revit. When you change in one spot, it changes in the other. If I came back and I renovated this building a little bit more and changed the window types or the roof type or anything that I changed here, it would not change in this rendering. So it's a very static image. It's not going to change, which is also interesting to use as well, because there may be times that you want to show a client a couple of different options. So you could create this building with a flat roof and do a rendering, and then you could add a gable roof to it and create a rendering, and then they could see the two images side to side, and then they could decide which one they like better. So different reasons for everything in Revit. So this is one regular type of rendering. There's a couple different other ways that we can use our renderings from different angles and things, and this is where things get a little interesting. So let me go back to 3D. Actually, let me start on level 1. So if you notice, if you come up here under 3D, your view tab, create panel, and then this tool right here, there is a drop down. So if we do the drop down, notice that there's a camera tool, and then here's the walkthrough tool, which we'll learn how to use later today. Camera tool is pretty neat because we can actually do the same rendering, but from a better angle, different angles. Say for this one in particular, I wanted to just take this corner of this building. I could place my camera wherever I wanted it to go. And when I click, you're going to have these rays that come out that show how far back that view is going to be. Say if I just stopped it right here and I took a picture, well, it's not going to be a picture of anything because those rays didn't really extend far enough out. If I change that, let's drag this out again. Okay, I'm just clicking too fast today. If I take this camera again and take the picture through the building next time, or even just to here, when my image pops up, it's actually going to have an image on it. So the depth of field is determined by those camera angles. And then we can just stretch this out to get the rest of the building in there. So you see, it's a much different field of view than what you had before using the other angles. And at this point, I can go back to my View tab and go to my Render tool and render this one as well. What I do want you to notice between the two different renderings, let me go ahead and save to project. Is that in this particular rendering, when we use the camera, we actually have sky behind our rendering. So if I jump to my renderings over here, so I have my north view that I created here in what I call a regular rendering, and then our camera rendering where we have the sky behind it. So you want to have the different options to create your renderings. What's typically used with a rendering like this, this is usually what's the image that's taken and imported into Photoshop, and then that Photoshop expert can play with that image and really make it look very photorealistic. And this is typically the image that would be shown to the client just because they do have the sky behind it and things like that. And it seems to be like, it definitely shows off the image a lot better. And we can change the way the sky and everything looks. So let me actually go back to, I'm going to go to level 3 this time in my floor plans. And I'm going to go back to my camera tool. And this time I'm going to take a view from back here. Just bring that all the way through. Notice how my point of view is a lot higher than it was in the original one that I took. I'm going to stretch this out so I can incorporate the whole building in there. At this point, I'm going to go to my View tab, and I'm going to go to my Render tool. Now, if we notice over here in this new window, we have a section called Background Styles. And you'll notice in that first rendering that I did, there were a few clouds. Well, here I can change that to no clouds, very cloudy, etc. You can choose how you want the background to look. So let's do no clouds this time. And let's go ahead and hit a medium render. So it's just starting to look better and better. And then we can save this to project as well. So we've got our renderings for our interior, exteriors, but you can also do renderings for your interiors. And we're going to use the same tool as our camera. So we'll use our camera tool and we'll take a couple of pictures from here. Let's say we're entering this room and we want to view this way. Let's bring that all the way back. There's our view there. Let's just stretch it out so we can incorporate more information. So now you have that view from that doorway. So once you have your view lined up, that's when we definitely want to go back to our view tab, presentation panel, and our render tool. We'll just leave this as a draft and hit render. And let's see what happens when we do an interior. So what's interesting about our interior views is that we can actually set the lighting scheme. So here we just have a very dark room with one window that's giving us light. So when we come over here to our rendering panel, you'll notice that in our lighting section, we have exterior sun only. So this is where it gets even more fun, is that we can start adding lighting to our building and light up our different rooms and things like that. So here we'll go ahead and change this from sun only to, let's do interior sun only and just kind of see what happens if there's a difference in that. And what I'd suggest is as you start playing with this and you start adding lighting fixtures, just to see how the different rooms react and the different lighting schemes, it's kind of interesting. Let's see if there's any difference in this one. So you can see at this point, if we use the interior sun, it's a much bigger difference than if we use the exterior lighting scheme. So here we're actually getting a lot of light from that external window. Once we learn how to put lighting in here, which we'll do the next class, it's really going to start coming to life and things like this. But I'd like you to see the process between no lights in here and then when we start adding artificial lights in here, what the difference makes. So even though there is no artificial light in here, we're just going with interior sun only. It actually is kind of a nice rendering. I'm going to go ahead and save that, save to project. I'm just going to call it, say it's classroom 1. Or sun only. So you can see what a difference that actually having these interiors makes. Let's do one from like another floor, just so you can see the difference. It just starts popping once you have these different interiors. Let's take a image from here. Let's go to my camera, pick up, let's try the stairwell because that's always an interesting image from here. So I'll go through this way. And you can see once the student gets a chance to put in their curtain wall, because this is an early project, they hadn't gotten the curtain walls yet. It's really going to be an interesting view. So let's render that and see what that looks like. Let's go to View tab, Render tool, and there's no light in here at all. So let's just try. I'm just going to put sun and artificial and see if we can get any kind of rendering in here. but this view, if there was a curtain wall here, would be pretty cool. So this is the view you would see in the hallway with no lights. All right, so that wasn't the best show off because I do have no lights, and no windows in here. So we know what it's like to be in a closed room. Let's go ahead and close that out. Anyway, I would still save this image just because I like it, and then I would render it later. All right, so we can go back to that. Any questions about renderings? As we get into next class and we talk about how to add lights and things like that, we'll do renderings again, just so you can see it with the lights and without the, well, you've seen it without the lights and things like that. So it is kind of a fun aspect to play with the renderings, even without the lighting, especially so you can see how your work is developing for your design part. Because a lot of times, even if we're in realistic view, it doesn't look necessarily realistic, but once you hit that rendering on there, it starts to really kind of bring your design together. So it's another kind of fun way to think about your design work. So any questions about renderings? All right, next thing we're going to do is talk about walkthroughs, and walkthroughs are fun too. Honestly, I do acknowledge that they can be a little frustrating because they have to be done in a certain order, and if you forget the order, then you'll stumble over that. So just pay attention to the order in which they're created. So here I'm going to go to my level 1 interiors view, and I'm going to go to my view tab, my create panel, and my walkthrough tool is located under the 3D view. So I'll select that. And basically, we're just, as it says, we're creating a pathway through this building. One thing that just caught my eye for this person, don't forget to add a front door to this building. So let's go ahead and just start the path. So we'll go from the outside. And you're just going to click and create the path. And we're just going to pass through different walls and doors so we can see what's going on. And then once you get the pathway that you want, you're going to hit finish walkthrough. Then you're going to go to edit walkthrough. And then you're going to go to open walkthrough. I'll just stretch this view out so we can see a little bit more at a time. All right, see what that looks like. And this is actually the last frame that we're going to be looking at. So we want to set our frame back to frame 1. And I'm going to change this to a realistic view now. Let's stretch that up more this way. Now I'm just going to hit my play button. And you see it went pretty fast on there. So if we want to slow it down so we can get a better idea of what's going on, we can actually change our frames. This is only at 300 frames. So if I change that to 500 frames, let's see what happens. And let's play that again. Notice how it slowed down just that little bit. And we could slow it down even more by adding more frames to it. What's interesting about this too is a lot of times you can catch little errors in your work. You can see how slowing down the speed just makes it a lot smoother and a lot nicer to actually kind of watch. And especially once you get, this is why I was like, I do the part of the reason I do the interiors plan, just because we can see, you know, the work that you did. It really kind of shows off the work you did, and it's really more interesting to see the walkthrough with the furniture in there. So that's why I encourage that. Once you create a walkthrough, it's automatically going to save it over here, so you'll always have it. One thing I want to check, I'm going to jump back to my regular 3D view. Let's take a spin on this. So one thing that I caught just going through that walkthrough is that there is a gap in this flooring right here. So notice how this stairwell, if you can see it from that angle, oops. All right, escape. All right, now. There is a slight gap in that stairwell between those two pieces. Let's go to interior level 1. Let me turn on. It looked like there was a gap there. There it is. So, and there, your second floor, there's a gap between this finished floor and the stairwell. So make sure you close that. In order to fix that, we're going to go to edit boundary. We'll pull this back and we'll finish drawing at this point. And draw here to here. All right, and then I'm just going to use my trim extend tool to trim that off. And green check mark. And now the floor is more complete. So it is, well, it is very helpful for the walkthroughs just to catch little things like that. And I do catch them, obviously, when I'm reviewing things. So fix that so you don't get points off of there. Then since there is this little gap right here, continue a little railing right here to kind of close that off. You can pull this back and then close off this section right here. So just a quick little catch for that project. So let me jump back to a rendering. That rendering looks quite good. So this is just kind of like some fun stuff to start working on and playing with as you're creating your design work. Once again, with these type of things, with renderings and walkthroughs, they are static. As you change things, those aren't going to change, but it is a good way to check your work, see how things are coming along. In the next class, we're going to throw some lighting in here and do some other fun stuff. And you're really going to start to see how your model's coming to life. And then we'll also start adding some interesting sites and things like that. So more fun stuff to come. Any questions about what we went over today, y'all? Okay, if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and drop. I'll get this posted. And if you do have any questions between now and next class, shoot me a text and I'm happy to help you. So have a great one.
Thank you too.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.